Can we now invite the administration to come in, please?
Okay.
We have a quorum. Let me call the meeting to order. I'd like to welcome the Bureau Secretaries and your team, but I won't introduce you one by one. When we call upon you to answer questions, you will be named. I'd like to thank the Director of Audit and his team for coming as well. We will now commence this public hearing on Audit Report number 68, Chapter 2. The topic is charitable fundraising activities. The leading member for this hearing is Mr. Kenneth Leung. First of all, can I ask members to declare interest? Mr. Lim Chek Ting, I have to declare interest, Chairman, because the Democratic Party has applied for on-street selling licenses and also hawker licenses. And I also declare that for this meeting, Mr. C.Y. Leung has not drafted any questions for me to ask on his behalf. Ms. Tanya Chan, thank you, Chairman. I am in the same position or similar position as Mr. Lim Chek Ting. I'm a member of the Civic Party. The Civic Party seeks donations by setting up street stalls and also online, and we also conducted a fundraising dinner. Thank you. Mr. Paul Chair, I'm involved about fundraising activities for certain charitable organizations. The chairman also says that he is a member of a certain fundraising organization. Okay, any other members? Mr. Chairman, after listening to Mr. Tanya Chan, I can recall different ways to seek donations by the Democratic Party. Some are by monthly installments, and also we also held fundraising dinners. Thank you. Director of Audit, can you now introduce Chapter 2 in brief, please? Chairman, members, good morning. Chairman, thank you for inviting me to come here to introduce Chapter 2 of the Audit Report number 68, namely monitoring of charitable fundraising activities. There are 6 parts in this report. The first part is introduction. It introduces the background to this audit work. Hong Kong society is always philanthropic. It is part of our daily lives when we donate to charitable organizations to make sure that charitable organizations will go by the principles of accountability and openness when they seek donations. There must be effective and appropriate monitoring. In Hong Kong now, there is no standard set of laws to do the monitoring. The administration uses 3 ordinances, namely Summary Offences Ordinance, Gambling Ordinance, and Hawker Regulation, to give incidental monitoring to certain charitable organization activities, including flag days, sale of raffle tickets, and on-street charity sales. The second part of the report audits the work of the administration in enhancing transparency and accountability in charitable activities. We understand that in 2002, the administration stepped up administrative control to enhance transparency and accountability. So donors will be able to make informed choices when they make donations. And in 2004, the SWD issued a reference guide on charitable activities for voluntary adoption by charitable organizations. By September 2016, 400 organizations told the SWD that they would adopt the reference guide. But then in the last 10 years, tax-exempt organizations under the Inner Revenue Ordinance has jumped to 9,000 in number. At the same time, activities not monitored by the administration, for example, face-to-face solicitation of regular donations in public places and online donation drives, all these are increasing all the time. Therefore, we propose that the administration step up promotion work to encourage more charitable organizations to make sure that their volunteers, employees, hired solicitors will act with fairness and integrity when they conduct charitable activities, and also follow all the necessary laws and regulations. Part 3 of the report studies how the SWD manages public charity activities by issuing public subscription permits. These are issued for general charitable activities. But then in our audit, we have found that some organizations with PSP did not follow the conditions. Say, for example, they did not submit an audited report of the activity within the stipulated timetable. And also, some organizations that did not follow the rules were the subject of withholding of applications. But then at the same time, they continued to seek donations through other channels. We also discovered that some activities sought a higher than necessary administration fee, and so the money going to beneficiaries will be reduced. Therefore, we propose to the SWD that there should be enhanced enforcement work against organizations that flouted the rules time and again, and also there should be the setting of a cost cap for general activities, including flag days. Part 4 of the report studies how the HAD administers lottery licenses for charitable fundraising activities. In our audit, we found that some organizations which had lottery licenses issued to them by the HAD did not follow the conditions of the license, and that is to submit accounts within the stipulated time, and also in following up on late submission of papers, and also in allowing the public to inspect lottery accounts, there is room for improvement. We propose that the HAD step up the situation, the monitoring of license condition compliance, and also to take appropriate measures to convenience the public in inspecting these accounts. Part 5 of the report studies how the FEHD issues temporary hawker licenses for fundraising activities involving on-street selling. In our audit, we found that the FEHD's administration and licensing stipulations are different from the other 2 departments. For example, there is no stipulation on the custody of monies received, and also giving an account of donations received. And also, since there is no one-stop service, charitable organizations may have to go to different departments for application and approval for the same on-street selling activity. This will create extra workload for government departments and also the charitable organizations. Therefore, we propose that the FEHD improve their administrative measures, including streamlining the license approval procedure so as to monitor on-street selling activities more effectively. Part 6 of the report uses the LRC report on charitable organizations issued in 2013 as the basis to explore the way forward for monitoring charitable organizations. According to the LRC report, charitable organizations are not properly regulated under the present framework, and there is no standard stipulation about governance, accounts, and reports. And also, charitable activities are only subject to limited monitoring. According to the government's guideline, the administration should submit the public's response in 12 months after the release of the report. However, the report has been released for 3 years, and yet the HAB is still coordinating the views of bureaus and departments. We propose that the HAB should quicken the consultation with relevant bureaus and departments in order to come up with a response to the LRC report. Our views and proposals have received the agreement of bureaus and departments generally. And I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the colleagues in departments and bureaus for their active participation and cooperation during the audit period. Thank you very much. 3 other officials would like to speak. The first one, Mr. Lau Kong-Wah, Bureau Secretary. Chairman, I'd like to thank the audit for making this value for money study on charitable fundraising activities and for coming up with proposals in different areas. The government departments will actively cooperate with the PAC in its hearing on this issue and would also actively consider and follow up on the recommendations of the audit and PAC in order to enhance the transparency and accountability of charitable activities. At the end of 2013, the LRC issued a report on charitable organizations, and it made proposals on the regulation of fundraising activities. The audit report has also mentioned the follow-up actions taken by the administration on the basis of that report. As I said during the Chapter 1 hearing of the PAC, the LRC proposals have a far-reaching impact on the future operation of charitable organizations, and this has to do with the jurisdiction of different bureaus and departments, and it involves very complicated issues. Bureaus and departments would have to carefully consider all these proposals. The HAB has been tasked to coordinate the views of different bureaus and departments in order to make proposals for the administration to make an overall consideration as to how we should respond to the LRC. After the release of the report in December 2013 by LRC, in January 2014, the HAB started internal consultation within government, and there were 2 interdepartmental meetings held in order to discuss the views of bureaus and departments. The relevant papers of these 2 meetings have been submitted to the PAC for reference last week, and I would be able to make specific response to members' questions later. In general, the first meeting was to discuss the regulation, direction, and framework of charitable organizations, and there were many complicated proposals involved. Say, for example, without setting up a single regulator, how we can have a statutory definition for charitable organization and whether there can be a licensing system for charitable organizations. At the meeting, different departments and bureaus expressed their views, and overall speaking, it is said that there should be further exploration of the issue. The second meeting had to do with the short-term measures that can be taken under the existing framework, and we explore the issue in 3 directions. The first one, to enhance the transparency of organizations and activities, and also to step up the gov.hk search function so that members of the public can easily get hold of information about charitable activities, and also to enhance accountability of activities. Say, for example, on Gov Hong Kong, there can be the release of financial information about charitable activities, and also to provide links to other websites so the public can easily monitor these activities. And number 3, to review the reference guide and to also encourage organizations to adopt them, and the public can also make reference to the reference guide to understand the performance of these organizations and understand the rights and obligations of donors. All these are in line with the proposals of the LRC report, and the HAB would continue to coordinate the views of departments and bureaus in order to come up with a consolidated response. In the process, we will make reference to the proposals in this audit report and also the views of the PAC. As the audit report pointed out, the administration has made laws with regard to gambling and hawking and disturbance in public places. And we make use of these laws in order to make incidental monitoring of charitable activities. The audit has reviewed these licensing matters in this audit report. I understand that the SWD, the HAD, and also the LVHD, which are responsible for licenses, have generally agreed to the proposals of the audit, and they would follow up on the relevant measures. The few directors will be speaking after me, and after they have spoken, we will be happy to take questions from members. Thank you. Thank you, Bureau Secretary. The Bureau's speech is in Gen 3. Next, about the two meetings, the information is in Gen 1. Next, can we go to the Director of SWD? Over to you. We thank the audit for making recommendations in different areas. At present, the SWD acts according to Hong Kong laws, Cap 228, Summary Offences Ordinance, and Section 4, bracket 17, bracket I, to issue permits to charitable activities done in public places. And we regulate the collection of cash donation, exchanging of badges, other souvenirs or other activities for the sake of donations. And according to this regulation, we tackle two types of applications. One, flag days. Two, general charitable fundraising activities. About applications for licenses for these activities, the SWD has been reviewing the guideline for issuing permits. In recent years, in 2011, 2014, and 2017, we have increased conditions for application for subscription permits.
So the relevant regulations, I'll give you some examples. For example, institutes, when they submit applications, they need to have the past 3 charitable years records, and they also have to, we require them to display the permit in a visible area. They also need to provide the institution information and the purpose of the charity drive. Another important example is that prior to the event day, they also need to provide an audited report, and they also need to preserve these records for the public's scrutiny. So in the report, we have also many other examples, and I will not go through them one by one. So when we look ahead into the future, we require, or we would like the transparency of the charitable events to be enhanced, and they also need to be accountable. We agree with the suggestions put forward by the Audit Commission, and we need to promote our work in 3 areas. First of all, we will work with the relevant government departments and bureaus to enhance the application of our reference guidelines. These guidelines are the best practice regarding charitable events, and there's another guideline. This manual is related to the fundraising, charitable events, and the internal financial guidelines. At the same time, SWD will make reference to past experience, and regarding the guidelines and the manual, we will conduct investigation, and we would like to collect their feedback and see how we can improve on the 2 guidelines. In the second area, the PAC or the Audit Commission rather, regarding repeat cases that have convened our rules. We agree with the Audit Commission that these case information needs to be disclosed, and regarding this suggestion, we will further look into a follow-up mechanism. We will also consult with legal opinion, and when we take this matter into consideration, we will look at each case very carefully. We will also assess the severity of the situation. In the third area, SWD will continue to explore on how to define the scope of administrative expenses. At the same time, we will look at similar charitable fund drive, whether we can set up a cap for administrative fees for events of a similar nature. So, regarding the Home Affairs bureaus and how we follow up with other relevant bureaus and how to comply with the guidelines, the SWD will strengthen its cooperation with the above-mentioned departments. So we are also willing to share our experience and information. Chairman, thank you, everybody. My colleagues and I are very happy to answer questions later on. Thank you, Director. So the SWD's speech is in Gen 4. I'll now have Home Affairs Bureau Secretary speak. We welcome and we thank the Audit Commission's work on value for money for charitable events, and they also put forward a lot of suggestions. In Part 4 of the report, it talks about managing the application or licenses for lotteries, and this Home Affairs Bureau is responsible for the rules and regulations under Cap 148, and if any institutes they want to conduct lotteries, they need to make an application with Home Affairs Bureau, and they need to get this license for conducting lottery activities. So Home Affairs Bureau wants to regulate these lottery activities, and the organizing institutes they need to comply with our requirements. For example, they're how to distribute the gifts, the lottery gifts, the design of the lottery, and the arrangements during the event. And they also need to provide documents regarding the activity post-event. So the applicant needs to comply with the licensing regime, and they need to submit different types of documents to ensure that the proceeds from the lottery can be used in the approved manner. So when Home Affairs Bureau receives the application, they will assess it very carefully, and they will follow up on the different documents. In order to enhance the transparency of lottery events, the Home Affairs Bureau, in its own internet website and the government website, they will disclose the date of the lottery, and they will also list the price of the lottery tickets and the number of tickets sold. So in Part 4 of the Audit Commission report, we agree that we need to further step up our monitoring of lottery events. Regarding paragraph 2.19a in the audit report, we will look at the proposed suggestions feasibility, where they want to enhance transparency and accountability for lottery events. And we plan on doing this in 4 areas. First, we will assess the monitoring regime, the regulatory regime. We will deal with late application submissions. 2, we will enhance our IT system. We will monitor late applications and delayed applications. 3, we will provide more guidelines to make it more convenient to understand the audit reports. And 4th, we will make it we'll provide full disclosure to make it easier for the public to follow up. Thank you, Chairman. My colleagues and I are very happy to answer whatever questions you might have. Thank you, Ms. Chair. So now we can start questioning. So Kenneth, before you start I'd like to ask, do we have members who need to disclose interest? Mr. Xu, you disclosed something this morning? Yes, I'm a member of those funds. I'm a community care fund in my political party. Any other disclosures? At DAB, do you conduct fundraising activities? It's an I'm engaged in fundraising activities for the political party. Kenneth, good morning, colleagues, officials. Thank you for attending the hearing. You all know charity events in Hong Kong. They do a lot of work, and we see, for example, in the audit report, in the introduction, in diagram 1, the deductible donations have doubled, and starting from 2005, 5.25 billion, it went up to 11 billion in 2014. So I think this indicates that we have more charitable organizations. We have 9,000 charitable organizations, and fundraising activities have also increased a lot. So I'd first like to explore some macro ideas in the introduction. Actually, in the introduction, we see in different areas, for example, in page 6 of the report, it mentions that the Law Reform Commission in December 2013, there was a comprehensive report and suggestions. I also heard Mr. Lau Gonghua from Home Affairs Bureau. He said that after the LRC report, there were 2 meetings convened. Overall speaking, the legal changes and changes in the framework, it takes time and cooperation. In paragraph 4 of his speech, he said that there was a study into the regulatory framework and short-term measures that were discussed amongst the different departments. So I'm not going to read out the suggestions. There were 3 sentences. So the short-term measures and studies you're talking about, can you give us a concrete date? And could you get you talked about 3 areas, and I would like a timetable. I know that work is already underway. Secretary Lau, thank you for the question. As Mr. Leung says, the LRC had published its report, and within the government we had undertaken a study, and the departments involved were quite numerous. There were 9 policy bureaus and 9 administrative departments. We conducted studies and information collection full steam ahead, and in the coming 2 days we will have 2 meetings. In the first meeting, we had examined how we could comply with the LRC, and we are aware that in the absence of a single regulatory regime, how do we deal with the different regulatory frameworks under the existing legislation? That is very difficult, but we cannot wait. So in our second meeting, we wanted to, given the current legislative framework, how could we enhance our monitoring regulatory work? Some work has already commenced, some will continue to make amendments, and We'll also hear from different department heads, and Mr. Leung can also ask them. And today we could also ask these directors what progress they have made regarding the guidelines and the one-stop service, so the directors can talk about their progress. Thank you. Just now you talked about the LRC information. It's in Info 6 if you need to refer to that. Well, let me ask some macro questions so the public can understand what we're doing here. So if you look at paragraph 1.5 in our audit report, there's a table 1, a number of permits and licenses issued for charitable fundraising activities. There are 4 types of activities in Hong Kong. You see in premises and on the streets, and these require different licenses. Flag Day, we are very familiar with that. I'd like the director explain. So typical fundraising events, what does it cover, and what license do they have to apply for? Can they apply for just a single license? Ms. Chair, thank you for the question. In our general fundraising activities, I explained that we have to comply with CAP 228. And in the past, what do we mean by public areas? What are the activities? We have consulted legal opinion. So under the law, in Social Welfare Department website, we have some examples. And the general fundraising activities, in our experience, we have major examples such as exchange or sale of emblems, souvenirs, a charity drive, house-to-house donation drive, and also cash transactions. For example, people can seek donations door-to-door. And we also have cash collection boxes at designated places, and we also have charitable events, and these are listed on our website. Thank you, Director. Could the Director also answer my second question? Is it one license that can cover all these activities, or do different activities need to make applications to different departments? This is a general question. Chairman, if they make an application to the Social Welfare Department for the events I listed, so regarding each event, we will issue one license, one permit. But if it's not a charitable event, they don't make an application to SWD. So we talked about lotteries. They have to apply to Home Affairs Bureau. So that is the overall arrangement. Home Affairs, do you need to follow up? The Home Affairs Department, they issue licenses regarding lotteries. So under the gambling ordinance, lucky draws or even horse racing lotteries are covered. So when the applicant makes a license application, they have to comply. They have to tell us the date, the venue, and the sum of each lottery ticket, and we also require that after the lucky draw, they need to publish the results within 10 days, the results of the lucky draw. FEHD, do you need to follow up? In FEHD, if it involves sales of items for charitable causes, we issue a temporary hawker's license. This is because FEHD, since the 70s, well, we don't issue hawker licenses anymore, but some institutes, they might need to sell items for fundraising, and the policy has been to provide arrangements of temporary hawker license for NGOs or non-profit organizations. Well, I want to raise a question. The fundraising event, if it involves sales of souvenirs, so aside from social welfare license, they also have to apply for a temporary hawker's license. If the lottery event is in a fixed location, they sell it from a stall. So aside from the home affairs license under the gambling ordinance, do they also need a temporary hawker's license? I think this is the problem. The organizations have to go to different government departments to make the different applications. Yes, regarding general fundraising events, when they have to go get a permit from the social welfare, there's a difference. If the event involves sales of emblems or souvenirs such as flags or a souvenir, and they conduct fundraising, they make an application with the social welfare department. But social welfare, if it's a lottery, they have to go to Home Affairs Bureau. So when they sell these items, if it's not a souvenir or an emblem, if they sell items on the street, they need to get a hawker's license. So for the same event, they don't need to get different licenses. But in other activities, aside from social welfare license, they need to get a permit from the lands department for regarding the venue, because they might be conducting activities on government land. So regarding the venue, they need to get a permit from the lands department. Does that answer your question? Partially. If you say sales of flags and other items and emblems, the distinction is not clear. If I was a charitable organization and I sell these items, it seems that it depends on the nature or item for sale. That's clear for flags. I'm just selling. I'm just saying if it's memorabilia or souvenir and other application procedures, it's quite vague. Could somebody provide a further elaboration? Could anybody answer we have 3 directors here. We have 4 directors here. But regarding the sale of different items, and they have listed that out in the table.
The 3 directors have explained, and Ms. Yip, and also we also have she's also added that the director of lands will also be responsible if land matters are involved. That's a little bit further away from the topic, but we can maybe I give them some time to think about it. I have further questions. Now, in the introduction, I have a question for the Policy Bureau Director. Now, the long-term objective, of course, is to implement the recommendations of the LRC, but do you have an actual timetable? You had 2 meetings, and you also have some short-term changes within the current framework. Different bureaus and departments will implement those short-term measures. But what further steps will you take to find out what recommendations of the LRC is feasible or not? And will there be a formal response to the LRC report as to what recommendations are feasible and what are not? And when will those measures be introduced? As for the supervision of different charity charitable organizations, you do have several meetings to deal with that. Can you provide us with more information on that? There are quite a number of recommendations by the LRC, and we are seriously we're dealing with those recommendations very seriously and carefully. It is very complicated. It covers nearly 18 institutions, 9 policy bureaus, and 9 executive departments, and the related laws. So I hope members understand the complexity of the matter. We are not sitting on our hands. We will seriously consider the recommendations of the LRC, but some of the recommendations cannot be implemented with haste. Otherwise, there may be problems because different provisions of the law have different ways of handling such activities. And it is also very important that different charitable organizations will be affected, and the nature of such organizations varies very much. The LRC, before compiling the report, did consult widely, and at that time many groups oppose the LRC's proposal of having an overriding body to supervise the charitable organizations. So you can see the complexity of the matter and the variety of responses from the community at large. We will follow the direction pointed out by the LRC. Mr. Leung is right. At a certain point, when there are some recommendations which are feasible and some are not, we will frankly inform the public and also the LRC if they are workable. Even if we can't wait for the change of the overall framework, if we can have short-term measures to implement them as soon as possible. But if a recommendation is not feasible, then within ourselves, now the Home Affairs Bureau is tasked to coordinate the departments and bureaus, and we will certainly submit the views of the departments and bureaus to the higher levels of the government for a decision. It's hard to provide a definite timetable. The task has just started about 2 years ago, and when there is an outcome, we will certainly inform the PAC as well. So there is a roadmap, but not a timetable. As said by the Bureau Director, when there is a timetable, please also inform us. And of course, we hope that you also show us your map. Now, as for the short-term measures, I hope that you will do some promotion so that we know that you are doing, instead of just letting us waiting for 3 or 4 years. Chairman, if I may, I also hope that other members will ask questions pertaining to Chapter 1, said the Speaker. I think there are still questions concerning Part 1, but I think it is time to ask questions in respect of Part 2, which is to enhance transparency and also accountability. Chairman, just now, Mr. Leung asked us twice on our short-term measures. Indeed, we have prepared an answer for that. Can I take this opportunity, because this is the best opportunity for publicity? The Director, the DSW, the short-term measures, reviewing our guidelines. On that point, I and my colleagues have a plan. Within this year, we'll set up a working group to review the guidelines. It's hope that the guidance notes can be applied to other areas of activities. The working group comprises different representatives from different government departments and also representatives from charitable organizations and the social welfare sector. Concerning the guidance notes, what should we update? Say the objects, the timetable. We'll collect opinions. As for our plan, before the middle of next year, we will consolidate the views, and then we will report to this council. That's about reviewing the guidance notes. Ms. Chair, as for the recommendations in the report, we are implementing some of the measures. First, to review the supervisory mechanism to find out measures to prevent those who have licenses or permits do not be late in submitting the accounts and reports. Now, when they apply for a permit or license, we ask them when did they apply for license or permits, and after that, had they submitted all the required documents. They are reminded that if they don't submit the documents, then we will not. We have the power not to issue the next lottery's permit. They have to make such a declaration or report when they apply for a license or permit. As for the information system, we have worked with the information services, or rather the IT department, to upgrade the software. We'll apply for an IT program to upgrade our software. We will also improve the content of the guidelines. As for the definition of net income after a lottery activity, this is to make sure that the licensee in his annual report will clearly indicate that net income. We'll work with other departments to look at the dissemination of financial information in the Internet in respect of charitable activities. We'll consider the protection of privacy in the process of making such disclosures. These are the measures that we are now considering. Ms. Lau, do you have anything to add? Chairman, in respect of enhancing accountability and transparency, the FEHD will make reference to the practices in the best practice guidance notes. We will require the temporary hawker license applicants to comply with certain licensing conditions or administrative measures, so that at prominent places of the stall there will be display showing the name of the charitable organization and the purpose of the fundraising activity. We'll take measures to ensure that the licensee will have adequate security measures to properly keep the funds so raised and prevent the funds from being pilfered. As for the application for temporary hawker licenses, there are two types of organizations. If they are tax-exempted bodies, our general direction is to comply with the best practice of the SWD in regulating the activity spot. We have to balance the interests of different parties and comply with the law. As for those activities by non-profitable organizations not involving charitable activities, the terms will be a bit different, and we'll deal with them suitably. The Director of Lands, do you have anything to add? In fact, the Lands Department does have some short-term measures, though not arising from the meetings mentioned by the Policy Director. Now, since it is about fundraising in the street, government land are always involved, in particular pedestrian pavements. If the activities include the setting up of stalls. Then the parties concerned will have to apply to the Lands Department. Having said that, we have liaised, we've consulted the district lands offices in different districts, but it seems that practices are different. Some have adopted a simple approach. Some of the colleagues are of the view that such activities involve other licensing departments, and such licenses have been issued. It is not necessary to require the Lands Department to apply for the organization to apply to the Lands Department for the use of the land. Now, having considered that, we believe that helps to simplify the procedures. Therefore, in the short term, we inform all the district lands offices that this is a standard practice, that if other licensing authorities have already issued licenses to the use or to the future use, with the condition that they have consulted the Lands Department, and then we will try to examine the process. I thank the directors. This is the purpose of the hearing. We want to listen to the follow-up actions. This is for, since we are forward-looking, please give us a paper on what you are going to do in the short term and in the medium term, and that can address Mr. Leung's questions. And this is also helpful to the writing of our report. Mr. Leung, in response to Ms. Yip's response concerning the guidance notes, my understanding is that they were published in November 2004. You may refer to paragraphs 2.7 to 2.10 and the paragraphs about the two documents. And I heard that there will be a review. Now, since the announcement in 2004, have the two documents been updated in the past 13 years? The Director. As for the reference guide, it is in respect of the activities and also the rights of the donors and also the financial responsibilities. These are best practices. Since 2004, we published the reference guide. We have been reviewing that. There were two major amendments. The first one was December 2014. We conducted a comprehensive review in 2006. We issued questionnaires and sought opinions. In December 2014, we updated the reference guide. And they are pertaining to transparency and accountability. As said by the Director of Audit, the organizations have to disclose the financial accounts and also service records. And the financial accounts will have to provide the details of the incomes and expenditures, including administrative costs and expenditure on the activities. The second amendment is this. The charitable organization will have to keep the service details and also the licenses and permits so that the public can inspect such documents. The third point is that when an organization recruits organizations or individuals to help the fundraising, then the charitable organization will have to make sure that these persons are suitable persons for participating in the fundraising work. There should also be a complaint mechanism for those breaches, to receive complaints in respect of breaches. In April 2017, we amended the reference guide again in response to certain concerns. When employees or fund raisers are appointed, the organization will consider their needs and also health of these persons, and they also have to consider whether the fundraising activities are suitable under certain weather conditions. And suitable care should be given to those who conduct fundraising. As for the guidelines of financial guidelines, since 2004, we also have done some amendments. We consulted the HK Hong Kong Accounting Society and also other relevant professional bodies. Now, concerning paragraph 2.9, the SWD invited 961 charitable organizations to adopt the reference guide. I've also seen table 2. To be fair, I don't know what does it mean by invite. The reference guide may have been used or adopted by other organizations, but you may not have invited all of them. And then the Director of Audit has also put the data in. It has shown that the response rate is low, and some have not adopted the reference guide. My gut feeling is that not only 961 charitable organizations have adopted the reference guide. Can the Director of Audit or DSW explain to us the responses of the charitable organizations and what exactly were the responses? Now, concerning the reference guide, we have widely publicized this, and we issued the reference guide to all subvented bodies and also NGOs and bodies which applied for permits from us. Through other bureaus and departments, we issued the reference guide to schools, museums and libraries and other relevant organizations. In our website, we have also published this reference guide. As for invitation, we refer to those who apply for permits from the SWD. We once again invite the applicant, and we asked whether they did adopt and make use of our reference guide and whether they adopt completely or partly our reference guide. And in our committee, we also discussed this again.
We understand your concern about this aspect. In January this year, our committee endorsed that in future we'll take another step, and that is on a flag day, if they make an application, in the application form, we will ask them to declare whether they will adopt the reference guide. If they don't, or if they only adopt part of the guide, we will ask for reasons. This will facilitate our future work in promoting the guide. As for general donation activities, this arrangement will also start in July this year. When applications are made by charities, they will need to refer to the reference guide at that stage, and at the time of application they will have to let us know whether they are going to adopt it. If not, why not? This will help us promote the guide in future. So the figure is the actual application figure, but we are doing a broad promotion as well, but we agree that we can do more and do better in future. Chairman, can you allow me another question? Okay. I understand. The reference guide is a voluntary guide, but I can see that the SFC, when it issues guides, well, they may not be legally binding. They are not laws. They are not subsidiary legislation. But very often when guides are issued by the SFC and the Hong Kong MA, their so-called guides or guidelines are such that if you don't follow them, there is this warning that your application may be considered differently, so on and so forth. I don't know whether you have statutory powers to issue an administrative order to say that I expect you to follow the guide, and if you don't intend to follow the guide, please explain yourself before a license will be issued. This is my proposal. Have you considered the issue in that direction? Mr. Leung, you mentioned the SFC and the Hong Kong MA. They are dealing with profit-making organizations, but this one is about non-profit-making activities because very often this is about humanistic endeavors, and they may need more flexibility. As Mr. Lau Kong-wah said, the issues are complex because the organizations also provide service to the community. If they exercise powers like the SFC and the Hong Kong MA, that may not be appropriate. Chairman, I know that you have different views about those two regulators. I'm just citing them as examples. I'm not saying that the service providers are in the same category. Why, I also understand you, Mr. Leung. I don't want the public to misunderstand that that is our proposal. Ms. Yip. Thank you, Chairman, for that view. Indeed, our jurisdiction is regulated by law as well. I was talking about the SWD's work. If there is the exchange of badges or tokens, this is not decided by ourselves, but rather under the law, under Cap 228, our powers are limited. If illegal activities are held which are not done according to law, we did refer them to the police in the past. But the members' concern can be responded to like this, and this is for members' reference. If an application is made to the SWD under the law, in the applications forms for PSP, we already exercise our administrative powers. When applications are made to the SWD, the financial reports have to be submitted to us, and also within 90 days, these should be made public in the annual reports or online. And also within 90 days of the conclusion of an event or activity, there must be a detailed financial report. And also when the people go about seeking donation, there must be clear name tags worn on these people. And so if they seek a permit with the SWD, there is a very detailed application form to be filled out. All the conditions that will apply to the applicant are listed, and we will do follow-up as well. To facilitate members, I can submit a copy of the application form to the committee. Mr. Leung, I will give time to other members. Ms. Tanya Chan. Sorry, speaker not coming through. Kenneth was asking about the legal side. Very often when we apply for permits, the departments can act according to law and impose conditions. I'd like to ask this question. I heard about administrative measures, and I was looking up the information. Under which law are you issuing these public subscription permits? Is it that you have statutory power to also impose conditions? I will also ask other questions on the reference guide later. Ms. Ip. Chairman, according to the law, if an organization doesn't apply for a permit to conduct charitable activities, then they would become illegal, and these can be referred to the police for prosecution. I was saying that they needed to submit documents and financial reports. That is our administrative power. If they apply for a permit, this is our administrative arrangement. It is not about prosecution or statutory powers, but when they apply for our licenses or PSP, they will have to comply with all the conditions for issuing the PSPs. Because the public would like to have transparency and accountability in the system. Thank you, Ms. Ip. If you can give us a copy of the application form, we can then take a look. And then we would also like to know the consequences of not complying with the conditions of the PSP. As for the reference guide, there was an answer saying that it was issued in 2004. There was a major review in 2006. And then only in December 2014, there was the first revision, and the second revision was done in 2017, meaning recently. I'd like to mention the LRC report, which mentions the recent new donation seeking ways, like those done online and also on-street donation activities that they asked you to fill out a form for monthly donations. In other words, there will be no cash transaction in the streets, so they do not have to apply for a permit from the relevant departments. After reading the LRC report, which was issued in 2013, what did you do afterwards? I know that later on you will do a series of things, and there may be a report in mid next year. But about online donation, as I declared, this is also done by the Civic Party, and I think many other people are doing it. In the LRC report, there are recommendations about this. I'd like to know how you are going to follow up the matter and whether this can become a targeted short-term measure that can be adopted. I think they already answered in detail about the LRC recommendations. They said different departments would be following up the recommendations, and there will be a paper submitted to us. Maybe you can answer the part about online donations and how you can monitor that. But of course, you can also speak on the LRC report again if you want to, Ms. Ip. Or I can state simply, I'm talking about recommendation 11 of the LRC report, which states that some people use the internet to raise funds, and these are so-called alternative fundraising activities. Or can we do this? About the LRC report, they said they would give us a paper as to how they would respond. As Mr. Lau Kong-wah was saying, this is quite complicated, but perhaps we can ask about this particular recommendation instead of mentioning the entire LRC report, because it's quite complicated. I am actually targeting online donations. Secretary. Chairman, there are new subscription types, including online donations. Right now, there is no law regulating that. And this is the case now. The LLC has not said that there must be a new law to regulate this. But what is your view on such developments, and what will you do? Chairman, I'm not talking about whether there is a law. I understand laws must be first scrutinized by LegCo, and I wouldn't even like to say again that you have done nothing in the last 3 months. But about recommendation 11, it was pointed out in 2013 that online donations are becoming more common. And I'm talking about short-term measures. I say again, short-term measures, whether you can target online donations. Can there be administrative or other measures to respond to concerns of the public? That's a clear question. What is your view on this recommendation of the LLC? Have you done anything in the past few years? If not, what is your view on this now? Chairman. Under the present regulation framework, enforcement departments have to act according to the law and do their work. I'll see whether the directors can do something under the law to regulate online donations. Ms. Ip. Chairman, I will say again, I said administrative and short-term measures. I was not talking about the law. We can tell the difference, can't we? Ms. Ip. Chairman, indeed, I already explained what the SWD could do under the law, but by way of administrative measures, our reference guide states the principles. We will sit down with other departments to talk about whether the present reference guide can be extended to other areas. This is part of our work in coordinating our response to the LRC report. Thank you. Ms. Chair. Thank you, Chairman. Under the law, raffle tickets are defined. They cannot appear online because on every raffle ticket there must be a number. And also, it must be stated where it is sold and when the lottery will be done. This is not the same as online donations. So under the law, we do not regulate such. And administratively, there are no measures to limit such sales online. Ms. Lau, at the FEHD Chairman, temporary hawker licenses issued by us regulate the sale of physical articles. It is stated in the license that physical articles can be sold at stalls or stationed counters at what time and in what place. This is about the physical setup. Our work has nothing to do with online donations. Chairman, it is clear. And I thank you for allowing the departments to answer. I think the SWD can tackle the situation in a more swift manner. In one table, and I can't refer to it now, it says that with regard to traditional flag days or sale of raffle tickets, the number of those has been on the decline in recent years, but the published figures, including NGOs and those under Section 88 of the IRO, those have jumped. And again, the tax figures have also jumped. It is possible that they are making use of non-traditional ways to seek donations. And you can ask the departments again, but all of them are saying that they cannot regulate online donations. Since you know this is on the increase, what are you going to do about it? Because we should not wait anymore. It has been 3 years when this has been pointed out. Actually, Ms. Chan, you must be referring to Table 1. It says there that traditional charitable fundraising activities are declining in number. Ms. Ip, Director, would you like to say anything? Please refer to Table 1. This is the reality that traditional activities are on the decline, and it is possible that online donations are increasing. But Table 1 only talks about traditional ways of fundraising. Ms. Chan, you can continue with your questions. Chairman, we understand that the LRC report was issued a long time ago. I, in fact, would like to ask the Bureau Secretary a question. Why is it that you have waited so long to hold the second meeting? Because the two meetings were 14 months apart, meaning over a year. Perhaps I have not read the papers as quickly as I had hoped to. I understand the departments have submitted some papers, and those are R68/68/Gen 1. It says that the first meeting was held on the 11th of August 2015, and the second one was on the 4th of October 2016. In other words, 14 months apart. What happened in those 14 months? Bureau Secretary. Thank you, Chairman. Between the two meetings, there was a lot of passing of papers between departments. And as I said, the situation is complex. We must be careful in attending to the work. And in that year, different departments, including the HAB, which is the coordinator, we have been exchanging views with departments, and at a later stage we found that there were complex issues and we could not drag on because we had to deal with the present situation. And so in the second meeting, again, we responded to the requirements of the LRC, and we said that short-term measures should be drawn up. And after the second meeting, as members have heard from the directors just now, we proposed administrative measures right away. So that was the process. Is it that the second meeting was held because you knew the audit has started the study? Well, it's not a bad thing, is it? Well, I'm just trying to clarify things, Chairman. She is asking, is it because the audit came to you to do a study, so you held your second meeting? Chairman, we went about our work according to the normal process. But please look at next step. Under papers, para 29. It was after the first meeting in 2015. And the next step took 14 months to be taken. Well, it's all right, but my question is, at a later period, you sought legal advice about the LRC report and also your stance. Is that right? You sought legal advice from the DOJ, did you? In 1997, 98, we sought legal advice. Yes, the first one. Well, could you ask your question like this? You can say when they asked for legal advice for the first report.
The first report is not directly relevant. I'm talking about the 2013 report. As you said, it's too long ago, 1997. I am referring to 2013 LRC report. I'll have the Undersecretary respond. The recommendation of LRC, they use a similar principle, that is, when a charitable organization, they raise money and they cannot use the funds in their intended use. And how do we deal with it under the principle? The LRC report says that if a charity commission, a unified regulatory body, were to deal with it, after our first meeting and follow up with the departments, we saw that in the short term we won't have a single regulatory body, and we had consulted the DOJ regarding the principle on how to deal with the raised funds. We had to ask which bureau or department would be appropriate to follow up. We had consulted DOJ. Well, do you need to ask the DOJ? Do you have to follow up? Well, I'd like to follow up. According to past experience, in 97, they had a tax allowance and fundraising study, and if the government had provided a legal opinion, the legal opinion. It can be found in Appendix 28, and I would like to see a copy of that report. Yes, we can go back and look into our arrangements. I'd also like to ask, do we have other colleagues with questions? Take your time. I'd like to ask about the one-stop 2.16, 2.17. Thank you, Chairman. Regarding the one-stop finder, the original intention was very good. So which department is responsible for coordinating the information? How does the information get to that website? There are 3 bureaus handling this work, so which bureau is taking care of the website? As I said, the website, the unified website, is handled by the IT. It's a portal site, so if regarding information for fundraising, it's submitted by the bureaus themselves. I'd like to ask the director if they have anything to that. Well, it's a one-stop finder. It's a multi-stop finder then. No, when they submit the information, each department will submit its own information, but there is a unified platform. It's not a one-stop finder. Well, if the public wants to know if there's any approved event on a particular date, they can find that information on that website. But different government departments, what has been approved, that is in the hands of the relevant departments, and they will place that information on the website. Well, this was established in 2012, but the usage is very, very low. Scaringly so. It's very unsuccessful. So, will you consider improving it so applicants can tasks can be made easier? Can you make your reference, your guidelines more accessible? Well, are you responsible? Who should I ask? Thank you, Chairman. HAB is involved because as Chairman mentioned, the LRC suggestions involve a lot of bureaus and departments, so we need a lot of coordination between the different people and the departments. We need to coordinate the different stance and perspective. We are handling the coordination, but we don't have a policy authority. We're just doing our best to coordinate. The so-called one-stop finder involves different departments. I think that's a short-term measure. So we have the different departments, and we're acting like a facilitator. We have a discussion on how to do a better job here on the website. So if you, regarding the low usage rate, or whether we can use the platform to do more, well, we are in negotiations. For example, the report mentions we can do more publicity and education. We're also in the midst of discussions. We have disclosed fundraising event information. We are also thinking about, let's say, fundraising activity has concluded. We can look into whether they can disclose the funds raised. The financial reports could be made available to the public. This is what we're thinking about. So, in paragraphs 2.20 to 2.22, you promised the audit commissioner that you'll do better And now Ms. Chan is asking you, how are you going to do that? So could you respond? You made a promise, so and now they asking the question is, how are you going to do it? Well, whether it's just Home Affairs Bureau in May 2012, the Chief Secretary at the time had appointed HAB to be the responsible bureau to coordinate the implementation of suggestions by the LRC. So that should be in our Audit Commission report, paragraph 6.5. So before the LRC issued its ultimate report in December 2013, there was a suggestion by the subcommittee. So I think you're not just a facilitator. So you can respond to the audit commissioner, audit commission, and tell us what you have planned. Thank you for the two questions. There was a question about the one-stop finder. That is a government unified platform. The information comes from different departments, so all the relevant departments are aware of that arrangement. Second, how do we step up the website traffic? How we increase usage from the public? We need more detailed information from the welfare, from the charity organizations, so that they can strengthen the public monitoring and enhance transparency. So we have requested the relevant departments. We require the charity organizations to provide the information. So how and when they're going to do it, they can provide this information in the one-stop finder and for scrutiny. Well, in chapter 6, you can follow up. You can ask that. So this is still the LRC report. Which paragraph are you on? 6.6. The title is Slow Progress in Responding to the LRC's Recommendations. It says the HAB is very slow. And the Secretary for Justice in May 2016 had written to HAB conveying the strong concerns of some members of the former LRC Charities Subcommittee about the lack of progress in implementing the LRC's recommendations. So I'd like to ask, what response do you have? Chairman, in December 2013, the LRC issued a report. In January 2014, we initiated our discussion. So on this point, we had an immediate response. But in the intervening 2+ years after our second meeting, all the relevant departments have an understanding. That is, we have to be very careful in dealing with this matter. I refer to the complexity and the public's reaction. So we want to deal with this carefully. But we're not at a standstill. We continue to have communication. We would also like a second meeting to talk about short-term measures. And we now have implemented short-term measures to step up regulation, to regulatory work. Well, if As I said, the LRC, when they did public consultation, they had recommended there be a single regulatory framework, but public reaction was very vocal. There were even objections, so that suggestion was dropped. And if we don't have a single regulatory framework, and if we want to coordinate 9 policy bureaus, 9 departments, legislation to do regulatory work, you can imagine the complexity. So I would like to tell Ms. Tanya Chan, we're not procrastinating. The issue is complex. We have to move step by step. I'd like to follow up. When the report was drafted, how did you explain to the Audit Commission? You did show them the report. You did respond to Audit Commission. That is correct. We had reported to the Audit Commissioner. I understand they have reported. So the Audit Commission has a response. You are aware of that. We're just reading the documents, and regarding the Charities Subcommittee under the LRC, they had made a lot of recommendations in 2011 and 2013. There was public consultation, and there was a conclusion in 2013. That's why we have Info 6 Executive Summary. Just now, the Secretary said that January 2014, they had already convened a meeting. They had collected different bureaus of viewpoints. That was the first action. Subsequently, they couldn't respond to Audit Commission at all. We all know that the different government bureau responded very quickly after the letter in 2014 January. In February 2014, we had 9 bureaus and departments respond. That is paragraph 6.8 in the audit report. We have June 2015, a preliminary document. After 13 months, we have a preliminary assessment report. And in mid-August, they had 2 meetings. Could we read the preliminary assessment report? I don't think we have that. And Chairman, I'd like to understand what occurred in the interim. The Secretary referred to a single regulatory body where there was a large outcry, but the whole LRC had 18 recommendations, and that was just one recommendation. What about the other items? How did they implement those suggestions? So I had just went to the washroom. So did they respond on when they would have a formal reply? Well, while you were in the washroom, the Secretary had responded that they will provide a document, a report, a roadmap, but they don't have a timetable. So after discussion, how they will do short-term and long-term measures, they will provide a report to the Legislative Council. We need to allow them time. So we should give them a deadline for handing them for reporting back. Well, we will be keeping an eye on them. There are 9 bureaus involved, Ms. Chan. I cannot force them. They already have a roadmap. They need time to discuss. We need to give them sufficient time. Our report doesn't conclude here. We have to see how they explain we need to be fair to them. They're not answering to us, they're answering to the public. The whole community is monitoring them. The LRC is monitoring them. Okay, I'll wait. The Bureau said that they weren't sitting on their hands in the last 3+ years, so I'll wait and see. Next colleague. Let me ask. Paul? Thank you, Chairman. The different bureaus had said that there are different bureaus looking at different activities, but now it seems that some events would require 4 bureaus and even the Lands Department to regulate. For example, if you have a street stall and you're selling a memorabilia that drawn through a lottery, a souvenir that involves a lottery, then theoretically 4 bureaus would be involved. Is that correct? Director. So if they sell souvenirs that are drawn through lots in a street stall, well, Chairman, if they are selling souvenirs but not lottery tickets that are drawn through lots, then under Cap 228 it would be regulated under that regulation. So they need to apply for a license to the Social Welfare Department. Well, let's say the Civic Party are selling some memorabilia, and they can also enter a lottery later on. Well, that would involve 4 departments. Well, under the gambling ordinance, there's a definition for lottery tickets. So the lottery ticket, you cannot purchase an item that could be identified as a lottery ticket, because the lottery ticket has a format. It doesn't just on the face of it doesn't seem to be regulated by that ordinance. Well, of course we have to look at the format of the lottery ticket. But let's say we do have such an incident in a public place. They're not in a stall. They are selling. They are not actual goods, but it has interest. It could be a commercial interest. Law firms could be selling coupons, or they are giving out coupons. It doesn't have to be a goods.
Say tokens, souvenirs. Then they look like that. Then the 4 departments may not be able to regulate that. Well, let me clarify that under Cap 228, what can we regulate? For fundraising by political parties, if they are not charitable activities, then they are not under Cap 228. SWD regulates charitable activities for charitable purposes. They have to obtain a permit from us. As for other activities, they are outside the scope of our authority. As for delayed benefits, under the regulation of the SWD, that would be in the form of cash or raising of cash. Otherwise, they are not required to apply for a permit from us. I think Ms. Ip refers to 17.1. If it is charitable activities, charitable activity, then it's regulated by your good self. But for political activities, it is under the HAB. But say it is not fundraising, but it's selling something, a kind of show in action. There is no actual goods. It's not a badge, not a flag. That may be a kind of commercial product, but not put on the stall. It can be in cyberspace. It can be in the street. Well, this may be a bit departing from the regulation of charitable fundraising, but shouldn't we pay attention to this? It is a loophole in the internet, is also in respect of activities in the street. Maybe you can put your question on other occasions. This is today's hearing is about charitable organizations and their activities. There is no clear definition of charitable activities. In respect of case law, there are 4 areas only, and I may have lumped them together. Maybe we need to conduct a review of that in appropriate juncture. This is a suggestion. I agree that this is not charitable organizations, but under Section 22(1) of the Gambling Ordinance, the Director of Home, or rather the Secretary for Home Affairs, can require the issue of trade promotion competition license. Trade promotion competition license. That's something like lotteries, but this is for commercial activities, for the promotion of business. But if it is not a competition, then there is a loophole. Well, I have no intention to belabor the point, but there are many problems which are outstanding, and that is also in response to Mr. Lau, the Secretary for Home Affairs. 18 bureaus and departments are involved, and it's very complicated. I'm not trying to make life difficult for you. I just want to point out the questions. Ms. Tanya Chan has asked about one-stop shop and also internet activities, and it seems that there is not handled appropriately. Let me turn to another point. Concerning the code by the HKCSS in respect of such fundraising activities, there is a need to vary or revoke the authorization. Now, in respect of the reference guide or guidance notes, it seems that no conditions have been spelled out in respect of amending or changing the regular donation instruction upon the request of the donor. Am I correct in saying so? This is another area which we will deal with in the future review. The HKCSS has made such a requirement, and in the review we invite HKCSS to participate in our review. I refer to paragraph 2.15. In Australia, it is necessary to have a separate account to deal with regular donations. At present, there is no such requirement. Am I correct in saying so? Chairman, we do require the charitable organizations to issue their accounts in respect of their fundraising, and also within 90 days the money will have to put into a specific account. As for the requirement similar to that of the Fundraising Institute Australia, we will ask the HKIA to ask the auditors to require the organizations to separate the accounts for such fundraising activities. We will ask the HKIA to follow that up and discuss that with the HKIA. The point is also raised by Ms. Tanya Chan, and that is the decline of traditional fundraising approaches. It is becoming more common to get direct debit authorizations for regular donations. This also is related to the District Land's office. Now, 77% of the stalls in the streets are related to persuading people into signing the DDA forms for regular donations. It seems that there is no definite guidelines in respect of such fundraising activities. The authority said that they will look into ways to deal with that. What exactly will the ways be? The Director of Lands. As for the stalls in the streets, our approval is in relation to use of the government land instead of the content of the activity. And we approve stalls only for non-profit activities, but whether they are fundraising activities, that is not our main concern. Now, the streets, the stall in the streets, as for these stalls, 77% of them for this particular use. I think the main concern should be with, say, SWD. Does the SWD have any administrative measures or short-term measures to deal with this controversial approach in fundraising? Ms. Ip, DSW. My apologies. I was discussing the question with my colleague. Would the member repeat the question? That is in relation to para 2.13 of the report about the application for license from the Lands Department, and 77% of them are for soliciting regular donations by means of signing DDA forms. Now, there is no direct reference guides for this activity. Are there any administrative measures to regulate such face-to-face solicitation of signing direct debit authorizations? As we have explained, at present, such fundraising activities do not require the application of a permit from the DSW. Now, what we can do is when an application comes before us, in our licensing or permit conditions, we will specify that these charitable organizations will have to comply with such conditions. As for the situation in paragraph 2.13, they don't need to seek a permit from us, and it is therefore not possible for us to impose permit conditions on these organizations. As for the reference guide, when we review the reference guide, we'll look into that. We'll talk to the departments concerned to see if such reference guides, such a reference guide can be applied to other fundraising activities. This is in response to the LRC's recommendations in respect of coordination, or one-stop coordination in respect of funding activities, fundraising activities. Now, in 3.228 of Summary Offences Ordinance, it is about fundraising. As for direct debit, this is not regulated. This is a big problem. Yes, I just want to point it out that there are many loopholes or even black holes. If you know the game or the rules of the game, you can really raise funds in the streets. You can take up a stretch of the street to do fundraising. I don't know whether it's more dangerous in the streets or in the internet. The directors have explained the difficulties. Now, the religious organizations may not want a clear registration or supervisory system or an overarching regulatory authority. But there are too many street scams going on, and there is little protection to our citizens, and there is little protection to the cityscape. Well, that can be a recommendation in the report. Ms. Ip has also explained several times in respect of the adoption of the reference guide. I want to be fair with you. Now, when you conduct the acceptability, there may be a response which will be embarrassing to you. But we know that you are committed to do it, but you have not done any survey for 10 years. Will you conduct another survey to update the situation? I thank the member for the point of view concerning charitable activities. We have many amendments to our reference guide and also changed the permit conditions on many occasions. We'll try to amend all these rules and conditions so as to enhance transparency and accountability. We are going to set up a working group. Charitable activities involve many departments, as said by the Director of Bureau. The working group will comprise of representatives from government departments and also organizations, and we will invite them to join our working group because they have adopted our reference guide and have used our reference guide. In the past decade or so, there were the number of Section 88 organizations has increased from 4,000 odd to 8,000 odd. Therefore, it is necessary to review the reference. And tax exemption has increased from $5 billion to more than $11 billion. This is a big issue, and you need to keep up with the times. Chairman, thank you very much for hitting the bullseye. You have taken the words out of my mouth, though I still have something which is unclear. In para 2.9, numbers were mentioned. 961 organizations were invited to adopt the reference guide, and 426 responded. And for those under Section 88, 8,200 odd such organizations. In September 2016, in Note 10, you asked IRD's assistance in issuing a circular letter as to whether they have complied with the reference guide, and the Department of Justice advised that it's not appropriate to distribute the circular letter. Now, these organizations, many of them are limited companies. Can you remind these organizations who are limited companies adopt the reference guide, or will you adhere to the advice of DOJ, though they are not always correct, and refrain from contacting the limited companies which are charitable organizations? Now, in Note 10, Director, Note 10, in respect of Note 10, we conducted a large-scale survey. We asked the IRD to help us in issuing the circular letter. But there is a provision of secrecy in the IRO. Therefore, IRD is not suitable to issue letters on our behalf. But through other means, we issue our questionnaire to the stakeholders. In promoting the reference guide, I will work with other government departments, as I said earlier. I will also do it through our website. As for the organizations, when they come to apply for a permit, we ask them whether they will adopt our reference guide. As for other organizations, in response to the report of the Audit Commission, we'll ask the departments concerned to assist, including the company registry, so that we can work together to promote the reference guide. In fact, the departments concerned, mentioned by the Audit Commission, such as the HAD, FEHD, police, company registry, company registrar, will talk to them on promoting the reference guide more widely. And in fact, we have been doing the promotion, and we also distribute the reference guide to different organizations. As for the 900 charitable organizations, they are those who have applied for permits from us. When they come to apply for permits, we will promote the reference guide among them, and we will also encourage them to adopt the reference guide. As for the recommendation of the Audit Commission 2.14b, 83% of them are limited companies, and therefore you can make use of the company's registry and the police force in this regard. I'm not too concerned about the legal consequences if you make use of them. That's a point of view. Chairman, if I may ask my last question in respect of the one-stop website. This is a good suggestion so that the public can have an easy access to the application made or applications approved by departments concerned. The usage rate is low and is declining. Now in paper Gen 1, in respect of the answers given by us, the answers given by the administration in response of the questions asked by us, page 45. It's a paper in June 2015, a letter in June 2015. After the meeting, there was a summary in respect of a report of the legal aid, page 55 rather. Let me try to translate broadly the legal aid department's recommendation, which is a one-stop finder. The pilot project has started. Is it the one-stop finder in July 2017? Just now, Mr. Chair referred to Gen 1, R68/2 Gen 1, page 55. Thank you, Chairman. Yes. The Deputy Secretary. Sorry. The reference of our paper is different from yours. Well, then I give you a copy of our document. Then. Gen 1. It should be the same. Law Reform Commission report in charity.
It's your draft answer. That is why I refer you to Gen 1, page 55. Now they have it. That's correct. What is mentioned here is the portal where fundraising activities can be seen and what the permits are and the scope of the activities. I think that is a good way of doing it. But then there was a pilot in 2014. However, you said that in 2015 you just started a pilot. Would it be that the one-stop platform has not done anything for 3 years? That is why the usage rate has been on the decline? Mr. Low, we agreed on that direction, as I mentioned briefly just now. The LLC report and the audit have both said that we should step up publicity and public education. We agree with that, and we also thought how there could be more information on the platform so as to allow the public to know what fundraising activities had been permitted, and also would like to give information on the follow-up, meaning financial reports of the activities, so the public would know that this is the platform which can give them a lot of information. That is the background of our discussion just at that time. Now the question is, why is it that for 3 years the single platform, which should be effective in allowing the public to understand what permits have been issued by what departments, well, it should be transparent and effective. Why is it that people are not using it? Is it that you just did it for the sake of doing it and you have not thought about facilitating the public's use of the platform? Bureau Secretary. Chairman. Whether the hit rate is high or low, I don't think we can accurately estimate it, or we can explain it sufficiently. But as the member said, the public are more used to traditional fundraising activities like flag days. They may not want to visit the platform every time to know when the flag days are. And secondly, as the Deputy Secretary said, if we can put more information on this single platform, if the financial reports can be uploaded so the public can monitor the activities, I believe the hit rate will go up. Oh, these are my own conjectures, but I hope to step up the service. Can I have a short follow-up? I thank the Bureau Secretary for his answer. I understand the first point, but the second point is that departments actually reacted differently. Say if you put too much on the platform, including financial reports, it would be difficult to always update the platform, and also more people will have to answer public inquiries. Would this be the reason why departments have reservations about this platform, meaning they don't want to upload too much information because that would mean a bigger workload for them? So somehow you don't want to do it. Bureau Secretary. Well, I think I can defer to the departments for answering. Maybe you can look at this from a value for money angle. If you put so much information on the platform and yet not many people use the platform, how can you answer this question by Mr. Chair? And in fact, some organizations don't want you to do it because of privacy concerns. The response is, of course, the accounts of the activity is different from the finances of the charitable organization itself. So overall speaking, could the departments please respond? Ms. Yip, or who? Or Ms. Chair? Chairman, thank you. I can explain the HAD and the platform itself. Actually, our own licensing authority uploads the information on the internet. We tell the public which organization does what at what place, and also the number of raffle tickets to be sold, and the money for each raffle ticket is also uploaded. And also, when we have this single platform, we link our own website to it. So if members want to know which fundraising activity there is on a certain day, they can just key in a date and they will be able to know all the activities, including the sale of raffle tickets. And as for the financial reports, we already published them. But the mode is not that we have it on our website. At present, an organization which has sold raffle tickets is required to submit a financial report of that raffle activity. And then we'll keep it at our office, and then we will say on our website which organization's financial report is already available. And the public can come to inspect it. They can ask to inspect it at our office through email or fax. The reason is we cannot upload the financial reports yet. We can consider whether the loading capacity of our website can support all financial reports. And secondly, as Mr. Chair said, the financial report of the event and the organization itself are two different things. The raffle ticket activity may be used to raise funds for the organization, and we will watch the financial reports to see the ratio of raffle ticket revenue as part of the budget for the overall organization's work. And if you are talking about the financial report of the organization, then that relates to the point of privacy raised by Mr. Chair. Therefore, if all the financial reports are to be published, indeed, departments would want to talk about it first. At present, we'll continue to liaise with the OGCIO, because the financial report of a particular event is already published. The thing is whether technically we can upload all the financial reports. Are you also afraid of hacking by ransomware? My proposal is that you should seek to publish as much as possible the event financial reports. And when the public inspect, you don't allow people to make photocopies. Is that right? Well, we can consider allowing photocopies to be made. Very few people would want to do it. You won't incur a lot of administrative cost, but at least it will act as a deterrent, because reporters can also make copies of the financial reports, and that would serve as a big effort of monitoring. We can consider allowing that for individual financial reports of events. Ms. Yip. Let me talk about activities regulated by the SWD. As I said, we require organizations to submit an audited financial report within 90 days of the conclusion of an event. And we also say that such reports should be published in their annual reports or on their website. But we know some organizations, especially the small ones, may not operate their own websites. And if the capacity of GOVHK is increased, we'll be very happy to provide the information there. And also, if you click into GOV Hong Kong, you already know what activities are done every day, general activities, raffle ticket sales, hawker license activities, and also flag days. The places, the time for the activities, all that is available. As for financial reports, we make such requirements of the organizations, and they can publish such through different channels. In fact, there is a big number every year, even for traditional activities, and for those regulated by the SWD alone, the number adds up to 400 to 500 every year. And that has something to do with the capacity of the websites concerned. We will complement the increasing of the capacity at GOVHK. Paul Chair, how much? I think I have used a lot of time already. Thank you. Mr. Shiu, is it that you have a question on the same part? A very short one. Okay, you can have your question, and then we can take a break. Thank you, Chair. 1.8 of the audit report. It says about 5% or 46 cases were suspected to be illegal activities, and they have been referred to the police for investigation. I'd like to know the progress of such cases, please. Ms. Ip. These 46 cases span over 2011 to 2016, and I do have some updated figures on hand. In the past year, there were 8 substantiated complaints, and 4 of them were referred to the police for investigation. What about prosecutions? Ms. Yip, we don't have the number. We have to check it with the police. Thank you, Chair. In Hong Kong, the charitable organizations are helping many people, and basically we should support them. But if there are dubious organizations, they may affect donations from the public, because we have to watch out, and we don't want to allow even a small minority of illegal activities. Also 1.8a, the administrative fees. Is there a cap imposed by you? Is it 10%, for example? Ms. Yip, on flag days and general charitable activities, flag days are quite standardized, and we stipulate that the administrative cost cannot exceed 10% of total revenue. But for other general fundraising activities, we are trying to see whether a cap can be set. Previously at the committee, that has been discussed, but the format and scope of the activities vary a lot. It may be a walkathon where a donation box is placed, or it may be a charitable ride, or there may be some religious celebrations. When the activities have to rent a venue, or when they have to buy some articles for sale, there may be a cost, and also there can be an allowance to be paid for volunteers, etc. So the scope and format of the activities vary quite a lot, and we discussed in the past, and we said that it could be difficult to set a broad brush cap. But to respond to the audit's report, we will work further on this. At our committee, we agreed that it's true that we cannot set a broad brush cap, but we can still attempt to stipulate what will be regarded as administration of the event, and maybe we can look at similar activities to flag days. If it is similar to a flag day, we can consider whether we can set a cap to the administrative cost. But as I said, there may be many different forms. Especially for religious activities, it may be a charity event, but the event only forms a small part of a bigger endeavor, and some administrative costs can be used for the bigger event, and we must allow for some flexibility. This is what we can regulate under Cap 228. Thank you. 2.9. Ms. Chair has raised her hand. For raffle tickets, we do stipulate that the administrative cost cannot exceed 20% of the cost of the event. Thank you. I'd like to go to 2.9. It says the SWD invited 961 charitable organizations to adopt the reference guide, and received responses from 426. 400 indicated that they would adopt the guide. What happens to the remaining 500? Chairman, we targeted the 900-odd organizations which applied for PSP from us, and we inquired with them. And out of 961, over 400 gave responses. The majority of them have adopted the reference guide. The reference guide is only for reference. It is not something under the law. It is not a condition for the PSP. So we did not follow up whether they eventually adopted the reference guide. But as I said, in future, in the application form for PSP, we would state that the organization would have to tell us whether they would adopt the reference guide. If not, why not? Afterwards, we will have clearer statistics. Which are the main points of the reference guide? So you expect organizations to follow. Chairman, in the audit report, well, I thank the audit for providing a summary of that reference guide. That's in Appendix A. And those are the principles for best practices, and there are 3 areas: donors' rights, fundraising practices, the points to note, and also financial accountability. Particularly on financial accountability, we say that the annual financial reports shall disclose information including the total revenue and total expenses of the event, the total expenditure of the activity, and also about the financial statements. They should be for public inspection. I think these are the points of concern of the audit report. Thank you, Chairman. Lastly, the GOVHK. At any place at all, every day, whether organizations ask for monthly donations or what, is it that all these activities can be seen from the GOVHK website? Ms. Yip. Once you click into GOVHK, you will see a few boxes. First, Flag Day. And the charitable activities will be stated there. If there are none on a certain day, it would say none. And then general charitable activities, you will see how many organizations have applied for the PSP and how many venues the events will be taking place. And then the same goes for raffle tickets and hawker license events. All these are listed clearly. And the organizations responsible for those activities are also given. Supposing I see certain people raising funds at a certain place, and if I cannot see it on the website, does it mean that they have broken the law and that there is a problem? Chairman, if they claim themselves to be conducting a charitable event and yet it is not listed on GOVHK, and if members of the public have suspicions, they can do either of 2 things. 1, you can ring up our hotline to make an inquiry, or 2, you can call the police to say that you suspect it is an illegal fundraising activity, and you can report to the police.
Okay, thank you. Can you tell us what your goal for the government Hong Kong site is? If it's not about information, financial information about these fundraising bodies. In your response, you said you would consider what the intention of a government Hong Kong site, that the applicants could check on whether the application was approved, and the public could also check which applications were approved. Well, currently, the public can identify clearly charity events being conducted right now. They can go check on the government Hong Kong. Just now, the example was that did a charitable body get a permit? They can check that on the one-stop finder. So we are also concerned the financial reports. Well, that we have to wait for the LRC conclusion how to fine-tune one-stop finder, and this is something you will consider whether it's necessary, because currently we don't have a lot of traffic to the site. So you have to consider whether it's necessary to spend a lot of money and whether there are any other alternative methods. Let's take a 10-minute break. Or do you want to take... let's conclude part 1, part 2. Thank you, Chairman. A short summary. In part 1 and part 2, we are concerned about, the PAC is concerned that all frontline charitable bodies operate under suitable regulatory framework. We don't want to obstruct their activities, but the donating public need to rest assured, and we also want these activities to be conducted orderly, and the government could also create a regime where meaningful fundraising activities can be conducted orderly, and given this background, when can the review be completed, the one-stop finder service, whether it can allow the public or even fundraising bodies find it more convenient. We also heard from Mr. Lau Guanghua. They are studying the 2013 LRC report, and they are looking into short-term measures, and the different departments are already providing implementable measures. And as I said, we would like a general timetable so the public and the council can be aware of your progress. So I think part 1 and part 2, unless there are any other questions, I think this is more or less. And after the break, if Chairman allows, I would like to move into part 3. Mr. Lam Chak Teng. If not, let's continue after the break. You have questions after the break. Part 3. Okay. Let's take a 15-minute break and come back at 11:40.